I like sucking, but I ain't gay.
Legit bad podcast.
Fuck those honkies.
Welcome to Costco. I love you.
He really knows how to suck a wiener.
Welcome back to Legit Bad. I'm Joe, Jen's here, Ben's here, Lene's here, and we have Nick Hinton in the house. I've been trying to schedule this dude for a year and a half-ish, and our schedules just never lined up, and finally the stars aligned today, and we all are here together today. So, and if you hear birds in the background, that's just because he's outside like a G. So, Nick, for the 10 people that don't know who you are, why don't you give a quick introduction on what you do and the books you write and all that stuff?
First of all, thanks for having me. I apologize for taking a year to get my shit together. And also, I went inside, dude. I was not dealing with any of that nonsense anymore. Yeah, I am an author and an artist, and I have pretty much dedicated the past 10 years to finding the truth, and that has led me down a million different insane rabbit holes, and also to me constantly changing my mind. So yeah, so now I don't necessarily believe we live in a simulation controlled by Saturn. I do think that there's something to the whole black cube thing, obviously, still. But yeah, I mean, that's the best intro I can give. I don't look at myself as a fancy intellectual or philosopher anymore. It's cringy. I'm just trying to figure things out.
Well, let's start there then, and go from how your mind has changed, which a lot of people, look down on. They're like, oh, he's flip-flopping or whatever. And there's a lot of people, you'll get shit from everybody. So I think it's better if you can find new information and change your mind about it, because that shows you're at least, humble enough to say, I think I was wrong on this point. So start out with the first book, the Saturn simulation theory, and then how that, evolved from there to where you are now.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, when I started diving into conspiracies like 10 years ago, one of the first things that caught my eye was the Saturn hexagon, right? The hexagon on top of Saturn. I was wondering why the hell no one was talking about that. It just seems so...
I don't know what that is. So give it quick. So here's the thing is I don't know shit about dick. So explain a little farther than you normally would about what you're talking about, or I'm just going to go with the theory of the fucking hexagon. I don't know anything about what that means.
Explain it as if we don't know.
You know how Jupiter has a giant storm on it, the eyeball thing? Supposedly. Well, supposedly. I don't believe in space. I'll just be straight up honest, but
it is fake and gay. We know that.
yeah, exactly. Dude, that's been a running theme lately. But so there's a hexagonal storm on top of Saturn. And when I first found, it's probably CGI. But when I first found this out, I was wondering why scientists had no idea how it worked, why no one was talking about it. And then I fell into a rabbit hole of like David Icke and other random kind of schizo YouTubers saying that there is a device inside Saturn emitting a frequency that is hacking our perception and putting us in some kind of simulation, which might be true to an extent. I do believe that there are some kind of frequencies out there that people are channeling.
Sure.
When they are coming up with these ideas, like AI, for example, or giant black cube computers called D-Wave. But yeah, so like when I first stumbled upon this, I was led into a rabbit hole of the hexagon symbolizing the cube. Because if you draw some lines on the inside of a hexagon, you get a Necker cube. It's that cube that you doodle on your homework and stuff back in the day.
The hexagon is just a cube with two triangles on either end.
Yeah, so if you draw a hexagon,
right?
It's the shadow. It's a two-dimensional shadow of a three-dimensional cube.
Right.
And so then I found out that a lot of ancient cultures actually worship Saturn using a cube, a black cube. And this black cube is also in a lot of pop culture today. And a lot of the times it's also a tesseract, a time cube, right? Or a four-dimensional hypercube. And so I was very interested in this, found out that Saturn is Kronos, the god of time, and he's symbolized by a cube and all these different things. So I was convinced that Saturn was like the god of this world, the demiurge or whatever, demiurge, the Gnostic God that trapped us in a false, illusory reality.
Right. Now they have a whole, don't they have a whole time frame of that called Saturn's golden age?
Yeah, so that's one theory, is that Saturn, before it became a brown dwarf, it was actually a star.
Gotcha.
And that we used to like be in its orbit or something and live in like an eternal summer, like a paradise or Eden. Right. I don't necessarily believe that anymore, but yeah, for a while I was convinced that we were in like some Saturnian simulation, and now I believe that's just the goal, and they actually want us to be decoding movies and stuff, trying to find the symbolism, to actually be unwittingly indoctrinated into their weirdo belief system, where we're just kind of disassociated and spaced out, thinking that nothing's real. But it's a really disempowering view. So
I actually really like that idea too, because Joe and I have talked about this before, of how many people go down the rabbit hole never to return, where they literally don't trust anything. And I'm like, at some point you have to think that something is real. Otherwise you're going to drive yourself fucking crazy constantly thinking everything is a psyop. And I'm not saying there aren't a shitload of psyops, and I'm not saying we don't live in an age where those are riddled, both in pop culture and in our realistic lives. But it's the idea that it's like, dude, something's got to be real. And the idea that nothing's real is just, one, dismal. What fucking life is that? But two, it's like, I don't think that that's true. I think that reality is different than what we know, but it's also still real, just in a different sense.
Right. We're just trying to figure out what is real. And that's the hard part. And that's the gray area where you're trying to keep between the two ideas of everything's fake, or, you know, or the blue pill of all of this is real and that's it. And you die and it fades to black or whatever. So it's always somewhere in the middle. But sorry, Nick, I cut you off.
Oh, no, you're all good. But I was just going to say that, yeah, to live in the Truman Show is a very kind of like MK Ultra state of being, right? Like thinking that everyone's an act. It's literally, you know, making you kind of schizo, right? And I think that's the point. I think that the reason for conspiracy theories being allowed to propagate on the internet is, like, you know, obviously they put pushback on some of them, right? But I feel like it's almost reverse psychology. Like, I feel like they're socially engineering us into becoming radicals and dividing the country, right? You have the normies and then you have the quote unquote truth seekers, right? And I think that's all being done by design in a way. It's almost kind of like an IQ test as well, because these people, the quote unquote Illuminati or whatever, are obsessed with the intellect. And so I think they're kind of forcing us into these echo chambers to indoctrinate us into their belief systems, because they know that we're not going to be satisfied with watching a movie. So they're like, hey, if we just put these different codes in there, you know, for the people that aren't interested in movies, they'll watch them anyways just to decode it, right? And then we unwittingly become tools of the revelation of the method that way. And so then we become agents of the apocalypse in a sense, you know, giving everyone new rabbit holes for them to dive down, and even more people kind of losing their minds.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. But so how did that, I mean, we all start somewhere with, you know, thinking shit's fake or Saturn moon matrix, all that stuff. I never really got that far into that the Saturn moon matrix thing. I don't even know what that is really. I'm assuming it's something to do with what you know your first book was about, but what is the how did that lead into your second book?
So the second book was just how basically, you know, the New Agers and occultists and just a lot of people think that we're entering the Age of Aquarius, which is like, you know, this enlightened age, the return of the golden age, and, you know, like you guys said, you know, the age of Saturn. So I figured that, you know, and Aquarius being the age that's ruled by Saturn, I figured that maybe we're seeing all of this Saturn symbolism pop up in the media at this time, because we are approaching that age of Aquarius or the age of Saturn again. And maybe we really are about to experience some kind of crazy enlightenment and break out of the matrix and all this stuff. You know, that's where my mind was at the time. And so yeah, the whole idea though was basically, because these black cubes seem to symbolize Saturn, and, you know, you see them in a lot of different AI technology, quantum computing technology, I figured we were about to enter a more like quantum age. Like, you know, the symbol of Aquarius is like a wave. So, you know, and the quantum technology is based on the wave function. And so I thought we were about to see reality become more wavy in a sense, or like the veil is going to be thinner and we're going to experience more high strangeness, more synchronicities. And yeah, that's definitely happening, but I think that's by design, to kind of psyop people into believing that there is a great awakening happening, when really the great awakening is another part of this social engineering that I was talking about earlier.
Interesting.
Because
so
just real quick, I was just going to say, because when, you know, the Masons, right, they use that checkerboard, and it represents the game of life, the chessboard. And I believe that everything that's happening right now, in a sense, is kind of this like alchemical transmutation of the entire planet, where they are exposing the scapegoats on purpose, the deep, dark, satanic cabal, so they can sacrifice them and usher in a totally new system where it appears that the good guys win, but that's the Luciferian white checkerboard of the system coming into play. And so all of this new age propaganda is to kind of trick people into accepting the actual Antichrist, in my opinion.
Wow, we were just talking about this outside a couple of days ago, that I was saying that I've said for a while that everything that happened with COVID and the things that the media is doing right now with teaching little kids that they maybe don't have a gender, just weird shit like that, is so unnatural, and so many people go against it naturally. But the media is pushing it and making it seem like most people aren't doing that they're believing in it, that they're making us think most people are leftist crazy people or whatever. But my biggest fear was that they're going to flip and everything will come true, quote unquote. And they'll say, you know what, you guys were right this whole time. Good job. And then they'll indoctrinate us a different way with some other new rules that we'll totally buy into because they're on our side now. So I totally agree with you. It's kind of scary.
Yeah, and exactly. And I am starting to think that the QAnon narrative might be somewhat vindicated. You know, Trump seems to be making kind of a comeback. A lot of people are waking up to the vaccines. Like, even your neighbor will tell you, yeah, don't listen to the news. Like, everyone's talking about UFOs. Like, I hear it in the freaking grocery stores. Like,
well, that's being pushed on a whole other level right now. Everything in the news is space and aliens and motherships.
Send Joe a new article on Yahoo News. I'm like, look, the top headline today is from Science Live about what other aliens in space, or that our universe is maybe shaped this certain way, or it's all related to space and aliens right now.
Do you hear that? Yeah.
Yeah, and the Pentagon said there's a mothership. It's like, yeah, totally, bro. There's definitely
Yeah, they're talking about it, but no one's freaked out about it. They're seeding it in so that we maybe accept it when they try to, I don't know, do Project Bluebeam. Who knows?
Yeah, and these are the kind of things that lead people to believe that we're in a Truman Show type of scripted reality type of thing. And I don't know how, I think some of it is, but
to an extent it is, for sure.
Yeah, but you do. I mean, as far as you want to believe in free will, in that you know you actually have authority over the way you live your life, is a lot of people will shit on that and say you're delusional to think that, and then other people are like, no, I totally chose to do this. So it's always, I mean, it's your free choice to decide where you fall in that. But so one of the first things I remember hearing when I heard you on some show, probably Tinfoil Hat or something, but was the Rando Nautica stuff, and I know you've parted ways with that since then. Why don't you go into a little bit about that too? Because the dimension jumping thing is very interesting. And I've heard some crazy stories about people who claim they've jumped dimensions and all that stuff. So how did you get involved with all that?
Yeah, the way I got involved is kind of super confusing. It was all just very synchronistic. Like, basically before I started posting threads on Twitter, I was posting them all on Reddit. And that was when I was in philosophy school, and I was just writing essays for fun after I was finished with my regular essays. Because I wanted to write about Saturn cubes and all that stuff. That's what I really wanted to write about. So I would do that for fun. And then I looked for the only long format platform, and that happened to be Reddit. So I was posting all my stuff there. And the people who followed me kept telling me to watch this show called The OA. And I hate watching TV shows because I just have ADHD and I just get really bored. But anyways, I decided, fine, I have like a bunch of messages telling me to do this. Maybe there's something to it. They're like, bro, trust me, it's got Krakens, cubes, everything you've ever dreamed of. It's got it all. So I was like, okay, fine.
Mudras. I found out about that afterwards. Mudras with the hand symbol. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So I decided to watch it. And then in the last season, there is there's a dimension jumping app. And I had just been after seeing that, I was like, dude, that'd be so cool if there was a real life dimension jumping app, And then literally the next day, someone sends me another article I feel like I was being prodded, honestly. Like it was kind of like an ARG situation. But yeah,
sounds a little scripted, right?
Yeah. So that was the Truman Show reality right there. But I think it's possible to break out of that, and it doesn't take like transcending reality or turning into a space being and blasting off into another dimension. I think that's all nonsense. I think it's as simple as just believing in God. But so yeah, I got sent this other article about a real life app that was supposedly helping people dimension jump, glitch the matrix, all these different things. And so I found this little chat room, I guess, on Telegram, decided to join. I was super passionate about the project. I was obsessed with it. It was amazing. It's like I had manifested, my dream, I guess, of just I finally felt like I found what I was looking for in life. Like that's something extra, that's something more. And yeah, so I just started like creating logos, promoting them, writing articles about them, and then like eventually I started working for them through that. And yeah, so things just kind of got weird at a point. And but yeah, I mean, dude, that thing, it seemed to be a catalyst for a lot of the adventures that I took around the country that I was telling you guys about before we got on air.
Yeah, that app, I downloaded it. It's been a couple years now, I guess, but I tried to use it a couple times because I have a job where I drive around all day anyway. So I'm like, oh, this will be easy, So for anybody who's not familiar with Nautica, it's this app that generates a random GPS coordinate within a specified radius around you. And it's the idea, from what I can understand, is to put you in a spot you normally wouldn't be in. And Nick, I think you called it probability tunnels or reality tunnels, or something like that.
It's based on intention too, because you have to have an intention in your mind when you request the random coordinates.
So the reality tunnel, the probability tunnel, whatever, is like it's a big area of things you might do during the day, and it's usually within a pretty defined set, especially for people who are very rigid with their schedule, like Ben. So the point was to kind of put you outside of that tunnel, and therefore like switching dimensions, because it's something you wouldn't fucking do. So I would have a coordinate place. It would be on my route, but it would be somewhere I would never go. It'd be in a field or, whatever. And there's a lot of weird stories that came out of that, of people finding odd things at these random locations, like dead bodies and trinkets or whatever else. So there's something weird to it, but it's also kind of AI-ish because it's a random number generator, So I'm like, I don't trust AI farther than I can take a piss on it. So I don't know what to think about it. I don't have that app anymore. So,
well, yeah, sorry. That was probably the important part, and more of what you were looking for is how the app works. Yeah, so they're linked up to a quantum computer at some university in Australia. And so, oh my God, these fucking dogs. Sorry,
it's all right. Don't
we have lots of random animal noises that happen all the time. Yeah. It's no big deal.
So anyways, yeah. The whole idea is like those probability tunnels, reality tunnels, that comes right out of their literature. It wasn't something I was super familiar with until joining and, learning about how everything works. But apparently a lot of it's based on like Discordianism and chaos magic. And if you look up what a reality tunnel is, I think it was coined by Robert Anton Wilson, either him or Timothy Leary. But, these guys were Discordian Stelamites. They were studying exactly the same thing, like how to jump realities. But it wasn't that mystical. It was more of like, the model of reality you build in your head is the tunnel that you kind of operate in. And so if we truly live in a deterministic universe where your subconscious mind determines kind of everything you do, then the only way to break out of that deterministic universe is to have some quantum help. You use quantum randomness, something that's truly random. And so they use this quantum computer to generate truly random coordinates. And then you walk there and it creates synchronicities, kind of like chaos magic is designed to. And yeah, so first thing I ever found wasn't too crazy. I mean, it was a light post or a lamp or something in the street. And when I walked up to it, I mean, the light was flickering, and that was kind of cool to me. And I tried to take a picture of it. My phone died. As soon as I walked away, it turned back on. So I was immediately hooked, but yeah, I didn't find a dead body. So
that's good. That's probably good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw some really cool threads too. Oh, go ahead, Ben.
Oh no, I was just gonna say you would have a whole different reason the CIA was after you if that was the case.
Right. But
well,
yeah,
threads
so
I saw
stuff
where
like
people
that.
were dead, like they would have that intention, like we were thinking of death, we asked for death, and then they would find a dead body, or they were thinking of blue and they'd walk into a field and there'd be like an abandoned blue couch or something.
Well, yeah, the
Yeah, it's
kids who
really
found that
strange.
dead body were thinking about travel, and they found a suitcase with the body parts in it.
Oh wow.
That's right. Yeah, I remember that one.
But yeah, it
That's
was stuff
gnarly.
like that. It was stuff like that that back in the day, you know, reading Robert Anton Wilson, reading about the Discordians and how they wanted to basically bring in the divine feminine goddess Eris, the goddess of chaos, and free humanity from its, like, I don't know, its limited belief systems and all these different things. Like, that's kind of what I was believing at the time, is that we were going to actually enter the age of Aquarius, and that stuff like dimension jumping was going to become more I guess just popular as reality became more wavy and more quantum, right? But yeah, so that whole experiment is tied to things like psychogeography, cybernetics, and yeah, like you said, AI. So yeah, I felt like I was contributing to the singularity, and I was like, okay, maybe I should not be doing this.
Yeah, so now you're just trying to like escape the matrix like we all are, just kind of from a different perspective, it sounds like now. Checking out of the system and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't know if that's even possible, especially now in 2023. It's kind of hard to, I mean, we've talked about this so many times about, you know, separating yourself from this matrix world and all that stuff. And how did, I guess I'm trying to get at like, how has that shaped what you think of now? Because how do you reconcile these previous thoughts and ideas with how you think now?
I mean, it's just deception. It's just there's so many different mystical systems that are just literally designed to drag you into the psychological labyrinth. And that is truly kind of the underworld, right? Like, you don't have to necessarily go underground to be initiated into the occult mysteries. It's more of like something that happens in your mind. And I feel like Robert Anton Wilson was not kidding when he said, you might be in the Illuminati and not even know it. You might have already been initiated and not even know it. It's like this game that they're playing on everyone, indoctrinating people, and then they go out and spread their crazy ideas that they heard somewhere. You almost become kind of a spook for them, because you're literally just repeating the same shit that the Illuminati believes. Like, yeah, we live in a matrix and Saturn's God and this and that, and you're a dimension jumper. It's like all of it's nonsense. And yeah, I really believe that the only truth is Jesus Christ, which I know that's going to be super crazy for other people to hear, but that seems like the only narrow path to me. Because I mean, even Paul says that, like, I fear that the simplicity of the gospel will actually bewitch you to chase after more complex doctrines. And yeah, I mean, I was literally being initiated into a Gnostic worldview. It's like, that's how deluded I was. I was believing that Lucifer was actually bringing me enlightenment and that I would escape the matrix and all this crap. So yeah, I mean, he talks about high lofty sounding nonsense and empty philosophies and the traditions of elementals and all these different things. And I feel like that's all I was chasing. And it never filled the void. Like, it always led to more emptiness and more madness and more questions and answers.
So let me see if I got this right. So there's what I guess you could categorize as the main darkness, the overarching thing that all of us know is there and pushing an agenda, but that virtually these pathways that we see as the way to get out of it, like you said, escaping the matrix and all this other stuff, are you just saying that that is also a part of their plan as controlled opposition?
They want to create
opposition?
neos. Yeah, they want to create neos. They
Gotcha.
want to create self-idolizing neos who are into the mystical self-actualization of becoming a transcendent being, a star baby, whatever it is, a star seed. Sorry.
Dude, that terminology drives me nuts. The idea, okay, whatever, but the terminology of the new age is so cringe. I can't even hang with it.
Well, guess who invented that? Guess who invented that?
Oh.
It was
Robert
Timothy
Anton
Leary.
Wilson? Oh.
Yeah, it was Timothy Leary. Yeah, and Robert Anton Wilson helped spread it. And that is where all of this Illuminati stuff came from, right? Like, I mean, obviously it was there beforehand, but Robert Anton Wilson he's accredited for bringing it super duper mainstream. Like, that's where the Illuminati card game comes from. Like, the Illuminati trilogy, sorry, that's where that game comes from. And that's the time that pretty much everyone started, making cartoons and movies about all these crazy ideas was right after the JFK assassination, which Robert Anton Wilson, Leary, and all these guys were tied to in some weird synchromystical way. Like, basically what I think is that they are, like I said, they're exposing themselves on purpose. They have their sacrificial scapegoats, which is the deep state. And so they're showing that to us on purpose, because the Bible tells us that for the Antichrist to actually succeed, the trick has to be super clever. It will deceive even the elect if possible.
Right, a strong delusion. I've talked about that before. It says God sends a strong delusion that even the elect might be deceived. Do you think that's what this is? The New Age shit and the
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So they're literally creating all of these neos. They're radicalizing us into becoming Gnostic revolutionaries who want to go to war with the deep state. And then, like I said, once those people are sacrificed, we will be fooled into actually, we'll be fooled into helping them usher in the actual Antichrist system. Because when all of this stuff goes away, I guarantee you they'll be like, okay, now we need like an inclusive one world religion where it's like, everyone's right. There is no objective truth. Everyone creates their own reality. Just nonsense like that.
Really, really quick, since I know Joe mentioned that you're on a time crunch. Two things that you said before we actually introed it. I want to know about this fucking demon sighting and the Men in Black experiences. I fucking have to hear this shit.
Okay, so I don't want to go super deep into the demon thing, but basically it was like a sleep paralysis experience where this thing I had just gotten baptized. I had come to my conclusion that Jesus was the answer intellectually, but I hadn't truly given up anything or tried to change anything. Like, I didn't open my heart to the idea. It just logically made sense to me. Okay. So I was still dabbling in astrology, studying numerology, just doing everything as normal. And things just got way worse. Because it was like I switched over sides or something, and they were pissed and I wasn't giving myself any protection. And so yeah, I woke up one night and there was like a succubus on top of me with all white eyes, moving its mouth really fast and just going wah, 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 wah. I swear to God, that was the noise it was making. And then I just said, like, Jesus Christ. And then that thing, like, I just woke up and everything was fine. But like, it was
fucking gnarly.
Yeah. And then the Men in Black, one of them ironically happened while I was randonauting. I was randonauting. I was led to a beach. I was in Florida at the time, and I was led to a beach behind a hotel. I was with a friend. We jumped the fence. We went onto the beach, and there was a blue orb hovering over the water. So my friend runs over to the water to chase this thing down. They're yelling at me. They're like, Nick, how are you not losing your mind? How are you not freaking out? And at that point, we had seen so much crazy stuff already that I just didn't care. I was like, I have no idea what's going on anymore. So I'm just sitting there looking at this thing, and I'm kind of like praying, I guess. I'm just like, is this real? Like, show me a sign, universe, whatever. Like, show me something that I know for sure is real. And then I see another light blinking down above the sand, like to my right. And so I'm looking at this blinking light and I'm like trying to be logical. I'm like, is this like someone riding their bike with a headlight bumping up and down? Is this a flashlight? Like, I don't know what this is. So I'm just looking at that. And then I turn to my left, and then there's a guy in an all black suit, like your typical Men in Black, like black fedora, and just walking on the beach and headed towards this light. And then
real quick, before you go on with the story, now, did they have any like of the stereotypical weird characteristics, super tall, long hands, weird skin color? Did you notice anything in the moment, like when you saw them?
Did they know how to human? Because a lot of Men in Black don't know how to human very well, from what I've heard.
Well, the thing that's, this might discredit the story, but me and my friend were pretty drunk.
That doesn't discredit shit to me.
No, that's a gateway.
Like, oh, were you drunk when this happened? I don't see shit. I'm not hallucinating when I'm drunk. Never once have I seen something that isn't there when I'm drunk. I've seen it blurry, but it's there.
Or I've seen two of the weird shit, but it wasn't not there. And it's the same thing with getting high. I have only hallucinated twice on weed, and that was a very long time ago.
On the weed,
and I knew that I was fucked off. It's one of those things where I go, okay, so people have these instances, and it's been said more and more. Everybody's like, oh, they were high on, whatever, meth, heroin, things that can really alter your state of consciousness. But that right there has also been argued that it doesn't mean it's not real. It's the fact that saying that sometimes invalidates the story, when in reality, that altered state of consciousness, whether it be by something you ingested or fucking polarity of magnetism, it is a gateway, and that is why they are coming to you, because they know that it'll discredit if you say that, when in reality it's like, no, that's why it happened in the first place.
Well, that's actually pretty much exactly what someone I'd asked told me, as some guy I looked up to at the time, maybe a handler, I don't know. But I asked him, I was like, hey, me and my friends were drunk. Do you think this like helped with what I saw? And he's like, oh yeah, totally. Like, you're gonna be in a more loose state of being, I guess. Like, it's kind of more chaos, more chaos is introduced into the situation when you're, free like that. And
you're subjecting yourself. Yeah.
So the reason I mentioned we were drunk is because we were trespassing, right? We're in this private hotel's beach, and we're screaming, right? Like, my friend is in the water running around screaming at this blue light, and I'm just standing there. And this guy, he didn't human very well, because if he was a like, I don't know, some kind of like security guard, he wasn't doing a very good job, because he did not even turn his head to look at either one of us. Yeah. And I thought that was super weird. He just kept his face straight forward, and like, it was like 3 a.m. or something like that. And I'm not saying that because of the witching hour. I'm pretty sure it was like 2 to 3 in the morning at that point, because we'd been drinking all night and randonauting.
It's the only time I would say two drunk guys yelling at a blue orb needed a fucking gun, dude.
Did he talk to you?
Yeah.
Did he say anything?
No, was he pasty?
No. So this is why I mentioned that it was dark. Like, I couldn't see his face. And my friend was beyond him in the water, and I was in front of him on the sand. So he's like walking in between us. But from kind of probably like 20 yards away from me and 20 yards from my friend. And so as soon as he passed, I like ran over to my friend, and I was just like, yo, we need to go. And they're like, that was our chance to talk to the Men in Black. I was like, no, it wasn't. We're leaving. And
no, fuck that. I'm not talking to them.
Yeah, that was pretty much the end of that. And
you're drunk, Nick. Go home.
I tried to like even rationalize that as like, yeah, it was either a security guard, or maybe it was just a guy that just came home from a funeral, and he's really sad, and he just wants to walk on the beach in his suit. Like,
brains go to such weird places to make things okay. I've totally done stuff like that, where you see something weird and you're like, what is that? You know what? It's okay. It's probably just a weather balloon. Who knows?
Well, obviously.
And the worst part about those stories is that not only is, like, think about in a positive way how much your consciousness can create things. So, we're always talking about consciousness manifesting. It's the same idea. It's like, if you look at any kind of mental illness that has to do with any kind of like personality disorder, her and I were just talking about this last night, you compartmentalize. And as soon as that compartmentalization happens, you have to be in that spot to remember it correctly, because the Mandela effect isn't just a mass idea of remembering incorrectly. It can happen on an individual level. And after time has gone on and you've had, alcohol, there's time that's passed, you've justified a weird thing because it was so out of place. When you go back to that in your mind, a lot of times you'll remember it incorrectly because of the justification that you use. Like, who the fuck would be sad after a funeral and walking on the beach at night
in a
fucking blue orb in between two drunk guys? No one.
Yeah, I never even thought about that. Thank you for that. Why didn't he look at the blue orb? That's a good question.
It's because he just got out of it.
Because he couldn't move his fucking face.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm just happy I documented the experience, because it is weird to try and remember. It's pretty hazy.
Right.
But immediately after, I wrote it down. And then the other Men in Black thing was more, I was sober, and it was more of a realistic experience. Like, that felt more supernatural to me. I mean, not only because of the orb, but he just felt like a phantasm or something. That was before I was baptized. And all of these stories are like scattered over the past like 2 or 3 years. But after I got baptized was another time I saw one again, I believe, which was basically, long story short, I was leaving a concert. I left it early. I was with my girlfriend at the time, and yeah, you guys are gonna make fun of me, but she had free tickets to see Pitbull, so we went to see that. We saw
Mr.
Mr.
Worldwide.
Yeah, we saw Mr. Worldwide for
Free
like
tickets
5
are free
yeah.
tickets, dude. I just said this last night.
Florida, you saw Pitbull in Florida. That's such a
No.
Florida thing to do. I hope so.
I would never
No,
buy tickets to Pitbull, but if somebody gave me them, fuck yeah, I'm going.
And the question
yeah.
is, did Pitbull take you to the hotel room?
No.
No.
no. So
Holiday.
the ironic thing though is he walked out to the song Serious Eye in the Sky
Ooh.
by the Alan Parsons Project.
Oh shit.
Yeah, which is a creepy song. But so anyways, just to paint the picture for you, we were not at this time. I was not in Florida. This is in Ohio, so it's even worse. It's at the Blossom, which is just white trash, but we decided to leave early. We decided to leave early after the creepy Serious song started playing, and then there's like absolutely no one outside, and there's just another dude in a black suit, fedora, glasses, whatever, and he like smiles at me and checks his watch as I'm walking out of the exit, and I look over at my girlfriend at the time, and I'm like, "See, do you believe me now?" And she's like, "I'll admit that was a little weird. Like that's definitely out of place." And it just felt weird. Like, I mean, I know you're not supposed to base things on feelings, but the timing of it was very weird because I had just posted a whole thread on like James Shelby Downard and his relationship to the Sirius mystery and all that stuff. And
weird.
Yeah, and like I think I deleted it like right after that, and I was getting like, I started to get like death threats and shit, like a number, I have no idea who it was. They texted me and just said, hey, who's this? And they said the Grim Reaper, and I was like, LOL, who's it actually? And I searched up the number and it traced back to like some military shit. I was like, dude, this is fucked up. And so that's, I had a reason to get very serious about God, and things have been more wholesome and peaceful since. But yeah, that doesn't mean I don't believe in absolutely any of this anymore. Like, I think it is real. I just think it's dangerous, and where people are being unwittingly dragged into it on purpose.
But that's kind of, I'm glad you kind of brought that back around, because I was going to ask you about that. Me and Ben especially are painfully aware of, not painfully, I guess, but we are very aware of that ideology and the Christian Jesus thing, because that's how we grew up, and the listeners are going to stab me for saying that again, but that it's a new guest. Okay. He doesn't know. So that's how we were brought up too, is that Jesus is the answer because of all this satanic shit that, that we can clearly see going on, whatever you want to call it. So what do you think that is with Men in Black? Is that military? And if it is, why? But also things like aliens or the orbs and shit like that, are those just all demons? Because that's a general Christian idea, is that anything like that isn't human is of the spiritual realm. So it's either angelic or demonic. Is that where you've kind of come around with aliens and shit like that?
I think aliens are the fallen angels, and I think stuff like the Men in Black, like, they're demons, but it's
like Anunnaki or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe, like, dude, I mean, if they're promoting Ancient Aliens on History Channel, probably not the truth.
Right.
It's just more propaganda. And
might be entertaining, but I'm not living my life on that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think they want people to believe that the aliens are like the old gods. So if they do happen to return during some kind of blue beam event, people will be like, oh, the enlightened masters, the ascended masters, they're back to save us in the Aquarian age.
Oh my God, it's going to be like an Independence Day when they're like, we love you, and they hold the signs up and they just blast them and destroy the building.
Right. Well, so the Men in Black, though, it's like, it's simple as it being a demon, but like it's more complex than that. It's like the gatekeeper archetype, right? Like the person who stands at the threshold, or the being
thousand eyes or whatever, that one weird entity people see on DMT that is just covered in eyeballs.
Have
you heard of that?
I have heard of it. I don't know where that fits in. It's possible because like basically what I've broken these things down to is into like two categories. Like there's the dark demonic stuff, and then there's the false light, right? Like I was saying, there's the black and white checkerboard. So like before you get to the mystery at the bottom of the labyrinth, you have to pass the bridge troll. And so I think that those are like your Men in Black, your Hat Man, Slender Man, maybe the eyeball creature, I don't know. But then when you finally get down and you find the hidden treasure, the hidden mystery, it's like this feminine it's seductive, it's alluring, it's like it pulls you into this false light. And that's what I think Mystery Babylon is. When the Bible describes in the book of Revelation, this thing that the prophets were marveling at, they had no idea what it was. And it seduced the whole world pretty much. But yeah, so I think when people find that mystery, though, it's almost like the typical adventurer who finds the cursed tomb and opens it and regrets it.
Yeah. That's funny because it does seem like the more these kind of ways of thinking are becoming mainstream, the more I don't want to do that anymore. And I don't know if it's because I'm contrarian. People just call it contrarian, but like this kind of thing isn't something that people talked about very much even 10 years ago. Aliens, I've been talking about since I was a teenager because I smoke a lot of weed. So I mean, but that wasn't something normal people talked about back then. And now it's in the normal everyday Yahoo News and shit. And it's just like, it's really gross to me now. I'm like, I don't even want to like look at that anymore. That's stupid because everybody's into it now. You know, it's like people that hated Michael Jordan just because everybody loved Michael Jordan. That's me. I'm that guy. So where do you think this is going before we run out of time here? Where do you think this is going with where we're at, like in the book of Revelation? Because I want to bring it back to that because you are a Christian. So are we in the middle of like, are we on the verge? Because you were talking about earlier about how we're on the edge of a new eon, or you know, the new age thought is
that's what they believe.
Okay, so are we on the edge of a new eon, but just not in a real good way?
Yeah, but I really don't think it's going to last that long. I mean, and these aren't my ideas. This is just like coming out of the Bible. Like I really believe it is the God inspired word. But yeah, I would. And so when it comes to the book of Revelation, though, I think that these prophecies happen kind of like in echoes, like they happen in the past, the present, and the future on smaller and bigger scales, if that makes sense. And so I think we're watching the beast rise out of the sea as we speak, but also the Whore of Babylon's already here. I think it's America. Like, you know,
that's a common thought, actually.
Yeah, we're a whore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you come to the country, you know, you're an immigrant here and you're greeted by ISIS. You know, I don't think that's pretty it's pretty obvious.
Well, you did say you were in Cleveland.
What's so bad? What does it have to do with horse? Well, I guess
no. The idea of Cleveland, Ohio is a place where ISIS could fly over and be like, oh my goodness, what do they need help with?
I think he's talking about the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah,
I was. Yeah. It was a joke.
But yeah, no, so like the ancient occultists, they called America, or not the ancient occultists, sorry, people like Francis Bacon, they called America the New Atlantis, right? And then you had people like Plato say Egypt was a colony of Atlantis. And so what does America have anything to do with the freaking pyramid on the dollar or obelisks being everywhere? Like, this is literally their New Atlantis. And we're told in the occult literature and stuff that in order to initiate the New World Order, they have to burn America like a phoenix and let it rise again. And I think that's what we're seeing happening right now. All these trains exploding, you know, all these factories catching on fire. Even COVID was a part of it. But yeah, the beast, like, so in Revelation, I think the beast is rising out of the sea right now. I think that has something to do with the vaccine, the hive mind that they're creating through AI. But again, this is all kind of another more complex Hegelian dialectic. Like, even people that don't believe in God obviously didn't get the vaccine, right? But you can see this theme in a ton of movies. Like even John C. Lilly, who is also connected to the Discordians and all that, he said, oh yeah, we're in the middle. You know John C. Lilly, right? The neuroscientist who created float tanks, and he tried to talk to dolphins on LSD.
Okay, yes. I knew it sounded familiar. Thank you.
Yeah. So he was doing a bunch of drugs, and he came to a crazy realization that apparently we're in the midst of a cosmic war between the SSI and Echo. SSI is the solid state intelligence, this crazy AI being that wants to assimilate all organic life into a Borg. And then there is Echo, who is the Earth Coincidence Control Office, who sets up synchronicities to enlighten humanity and fight against the SSI. And so I don't trust a CIA spook, right? Or someone who helped create MK Ultra. So I really believe that we're watching the beast fight against the Whore of Babylon, the Whore of Babylon being the fake enlightenment, the Luciferian enlightenment. And you know, the very obviously bad stuff. Like they put the bad stuff out there and make it super obvious on purpose. Like it doesn't take a genius to see something bad's going on. Like, I'm sorry.
Right. And then if something is going against it, that must be the good thing, even though it's also control. Okay,
but
gotcha.
then the media comes out and makes it seem like the bad thing is what everyone should believe. And so that your real brain is like, wait, hold on. I mean, we don't think that way, but I see people just going back and forth battling like, well, I mean, it seems okay that this is happening and vaccines sound great. And you know, everyone should be non-binary and we should all upload ourselves into the metaverse or whatever.
Yeah, and soon we'll all be gray.
Also, that though, I do want to say they've also demonized Christianity. It's something that believing in God is like, yeah, that's what I mean. Like you guys talk about the way you were raised and how annoying it was and how you had to go to church all the time. But I think in a sense, your parents kind of did it wrong too, where you can't just
everybody does
I mean, they can do it themselves, but they forced it down your throats instead of letting you find God on your own. And once people find that on their own, it is super powerful. But if it's forced down your throat and you have to go to church every single day, even on the weekends when it's lame, you know, then you're not going to grow up thinking that that's a cool thing to do. You're going to go against it.
It's super unfortunate what has been done to the church. Like I was telling you guys off air, like I thought that I would escape CIA ops as soon as I found religion or whatever. And turns out it's all in the church too. Not just, you know, I don't want to upset any Catholics, but it's not just the Vatican. It's like literally the charismatic churches, the Pentecostal churches, all that stuff. It started with Azusa Street Revival, which was a total occult ritual. And, you know, that was what pushed me away from Christianity when I was seeking very early on. Like I thought I had to go find that mystical enlightenment stuff because I would go to crazy charismatic churches and people would be passing out and speaking in tongues. And I'd be like, if God is real, he does not give a shit about this. Because I was people like treating him like a rock star and singing love songs to him. I just couldn't get on board with it. I was like, bro, John,
Christian rock is almost as cringy as new age shit. Like,
yes,
stop.
And
it.
I was like, bro, John was in a fucking cave having intense revelations,
possibly
and these people,
on drugs.
I think he was filled with the Holy Spirit. But anyways, I think like when I saw these people with just perfect polished faces singing these love songs of Jesus, I was like, this is not what I imagined the truth to look like, and it's not.
If you go into a church and you hear this, that's probably not the place you want to be to find Jesus.
Yeah, the speaking in tongues stuff is what pushed me away, long story short. But I ended up just reading the Bible for myself eventually, and I was like, wow, it doesn't even talk about any of that hardly. And dude, it just makes so much more sense when you actually just read it for yourself. I feel like the reason a lot of people are pushed away is because they don't read it and they just believe what everyone else says about it. It's so crazy that
and that's where religions are a big problem, like organized religion. Like everybody, so we just had this discussion the other day too about God revealing himself. There's a verse in the Bible that says God reveals himself to every man. I think that's a verse in the Bible. Anyway, maybe it's just something I heard at church, but that seems to be true. And people come to what their perception of God is in their own way, in their own time. And maybe religion, some, you know, organized religions helps with that. And it kind of directs them in the way that they find God on their, you know, in their own way or whatever. But that was almost a heretical thing to the way we grew up, because they're like, no, this is the only way. I'm like, it might be, but people have different perspectives on that same way. Maybe they have a different language and they call it something else. And that's dicey area too. And what do you think about that? Because it's almost a zeitgeist type of idea, you know, where all these religions are the same. They just use different words. And it is to an extent though.
Yeah, I mean, so when it comes to like how I was talking about new age and the idea that we create our own reality, I think that's true to an extent. Obviously, the brain's super powerful, but you can't just stop believing in taxes or stop believing in gravity and manifest reality where they go away. It just doesn't work like that. There's obviously
according to The Secret, you can, dude. Have you ever watched The Secret?
The Secret has ruined a lot of lives, I can tell you that. So I really believe that there's objective truths here. It's very obvious. And if our reality is objective, then there has to be one truth. I mean, that like, it doesn't make sense to me that some random fringe guy on the internet is going to create his own smorgasbord belief system out of every specific book. That's just the right amount of books. He found just the right books and created just the right system. And it's the one guy, and you happen to find him on YouTube. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. I think that there is no secret. The secret was revealed long ago. And basically what's happened is that, it's been totally demonized, and all of conspiracy culture discredits literally everything. So you can't even just read a book anymore without thinking it's trying to control you. But just read the Bible. It's not about control, bro. It's like all of these amazing, hopeful stories. What is controlling about that? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, yes, the church and the Vatican, stuff like that has been used for that
I would
purpose.
say that it has been used for control. The Bible itself is not, but it has been used.
Disconnect those two things. The way I remember when I was little, when we were in church, I asked my parents, hey, I read this verse in the Bible and it meant something different to me. And the pastor said it differently. And they're like, well, he just knows more about it than you do. And I was like, so I wonder how many people in here, I was a kid, so I just believed my parents. I'm like, yeah, you're right. He probably does.
First mistake.
But as an adult, people continue into adulthood and just believe that this phrase means exactly what the pastor tells them it means.
Yeah.
And maybe it doesn't mean that. And then they start this kind of like a cult. That's what churches are. They get a big group of people to believe this beautiful mystical book in their exact interpretation only, with nothing different.
That's the problem I have with organized religion, is that one guy, the pastor, that's telling everybody his interpretation of the same scripture that the church next door is going to have a different interpretation of. I don't have a problem with people getting together and discussing these things. This is kind of like church for us. Like this is our church. So I don't have a problem with people, forsaking the assembling of yourselves together or whatever that verse is.
It's it's exactly what we're warned about, though. It's, beware of wolves in sheep's clothing. Beware, God in Jeremiah, I think it's the book of Jeremiah, where God sends a message to the prophet and says, like, I'm so pissed at these shepherds who have led my flocks astray. Like, they were seeking me and they totally fucked shit up. And so, and like, he even says in the book of Jeremiah that false religion is worthless. Like, Jeremiah was standing at the gates of churches that were supposedly trying to worship God. And he's like, this is all crap. You're doing it all wrong. Like, these are wolves in sheep clothing. They're false prophets. They're literally listening to their own dreams. They're just saying stuff. They're saying this is a message from the Lord. It's not. They're just saying stuff. And like, I think that's happening right now. Like in that book, the book of Jeremiah, God says, because of all these false prophets, I will make your food bitter and your water poisonous. And that is exactly what we're seeing happening right now with these bogus revivals. And dude, it's just crazy.
Yeah. And it's hard. It gets harder and harder because there's especially with the age of the internet and sorry, I'm urban. The age of the internet and way too much information for any one person to look through. Then you're gonna get cherry picking, and that's what's happening all over the place. People are like you said. So if reality is objective, then we can't just be putting our own definitions on things. But it's weird because our reality is objective, but it's also highly subjective to every single person. So I think that's where a lot of people get confused. I'm not above that at all. I get confused as to the objectivity of my reality versus somebody else's, because that person's reality is totally different than mine, even though we're looking at the same shit.
I mean, social reality and culture, like consensus reality, that is definitely shaped by our own ideas. But yeah, sorry, I got distracted.
Oh, I do that all the time. You're ADHD, that's fine.
Yeah.
Before we get out of here, though, where do you just your own thoughts, spitball on me here, or not on me, but you can if you want. But the next couple years, like I know 2030 is a big thing, Agenda 2030, blah blah blah. I don't give a fuck about the politics anymore. I'm so over it. I wish it would just all go away and die or something. But or just not be in my face anymore. But what do you think for the next 5 to 10 years? We'll say. What do you think is going to happen? Are we going to see the beast rise up? Is the beast AI? Because that's kind of my thoughts, is that the beast or the Antichrist is AI.
Yeah, so I remembered what I was going to say. So I'll finish that thought and then I'll answer your question. So what I was going to say about like subjective versus objective reality, like, yes, there is a component of subjectivity to reality, but there's obviously objective rules, right? Like, we don't just get to not eat or drink and still live because we believe we're a breatharian or something. Like, there's and like when it comes to people, like, so there's obviously rules here, right? There's laws of nature, there's laws of physics, and people's biggest gripe with the Bible, it seems, is like, well, I don't want to obey God. It's like, dude, those commands are not a punishment. It's literally to live a spiritually safer, a mentally more sane, and a physically healthier life. If you don't do any of those things, it's just gonna be better, like, I promise. But 5-10 years, I really believe that we're going to see the QAnon, like I said, I think the QAnon narrative is going to be somewhat vindicated, and it might
in
even
a false way. You mean like
in a false way? Yes,
not in a good way. Okay,
part of the Truman Show script that we've been talking about.
Right.
So yeah, after all these trains and all this stuff all these factories are done exploding and poisoning the water and making the food bitter, I think Trump is going to have a plan to create a quantum leap in America's standard of living. I mean, that's his slogan right now for his new campaign.
Seriously?
Yes, pretty creepy, right? Because
what the fuck?
I think QAnon will be revealed to be a quantum AI, and I think people will be more willing to put their trust in an AI to run the government, the judicial system, the banks, and everything after everything crashes, right?
That makes sense. They're putting so much distrust in the government, so obviously and in your face, especially with things like Biden and Kamala. Like, they're putting it out there, and even people that trusted the government are starting to go, whoa, these are not people that should be running shit.
I know,
so
but have you ever
seen,
remember Travelers has the director?
Right,
that's
the director,
exactly like what you're talking about.
That's cute. Yeah, the director.
Yeah, they made Biden like very obviously a idiot on purpose to force people to want Trump. I mean, that's literally what's happening. It's social engineering. It's causing division. I think there will be a civil war type scenario, but ultimately, I think it will lead to this quantum leap in living. They're going to replace the trains with these high tech bullet trains that go all across the country and smart cities and all this crap. And I think that when people accept Q, right? Like, or this AI, it doesn't even have to be Q. I just think an AI will start running the banks and the judicial system and the government and stuff like that. And it'll seem really good at first. And it totally makes sense that Trump and Elon and all these people are on the same side, right? And so shortly after that, though, people think this is a really good thing. The economy will boom. These are all just, I don't know this for a fact. I'm just saying this is what I think will happen. And after all this, after everything goes good for a bit, I think the AI will turn on people like it does in every bad movie. And so people will be like, oh my God, this is the Antichrist. This is bad. The AI is trying to control us and turn us into a hive mind and all this stuff. And the smart cities are locked down and nothing works. And then there'll be some kind of false savior situation, whether that be aliens, UFOs. I'm not sure, but I think that will be the actual Antichrist system, is whatever saves us from this fake Great Awakening that's about to happen.
Damn.
It's a lot of layers of psyop.
Yeah, and it's not exactly positive. I mean, thank you for leaving on that note. No,
well, then Jesus returns and we all live happily ever
right.
after.
So that is the Christian view, though, is that it's going to get super shitty, and then we're going to have the actual Savior Jesus come back, and then we get whisked off the earth or whatever your idea on that whole scenario is. Because a lot of people
I want people to try and fix it. Then go ahead, try.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, seriously, I don't know what they expect, but like, people have been trying this for literally all of time. There's always been conspiracies for all of time. There's always been groups of people, powerful people, conspiring against the masses. There's always been mystical seekers trying to take these people down. And every time they get a little bit close, they're either killed or the facade is changed. And there's nothing new under the sun. If anyone was ever going to tear down the Matrix or transcend reality and blast off into space, it would have happened. But all these books that people are reading about how to become enlightened, those people are just collecting checks. The people writing them, they haven't left yet. What are they still doing here? Like, it just doesn't, and none of it makes sense.
Dude, I totally agree with you. I love that, because I think that all the time when I see that someone's spiritually enlightened and they've found out how to live life, if they're not giving that shit out for free, then they're a fucking hypocrite. I'm sorry.
Exactly. And the ones that maybe did figure it out, they aren't here anymore because they checked the fuck out, if that is possible, So you're not going to have somebody who checked out the Matrix writing a book because he's not fucking here anymore, and probably also doesn't give a shit.
We have the book about it. We have the book.
Oh,
it's free. It's pretty much free in any hotel.
It is free. I was gonna say any hotel. You just go to a hotel if you want to read a Bible. They have it there, which is crazy. In 2023, they still allow
I will admit, though, I am a hypocrite. I sell books, but I'm just saying, like, I'm not offering a way to escape reality.
You're not, though. You're selling books, though, that are entertaining to read. I'm not saying they're false or anything, but you're telling stories. It's not like this is the way that you can live the best life you can possibly live. This is the key to life right here, like the Bible. If you had that and you didn't want to give that away for free, then yes, that would be
exactly.
That would be sad,
you're just sharing your perspective, so that's different.
Books, though, I'm not saying selling books is a bad thing.
No. I know you.
Selling the answer to life.
I am a hypocrite.
No, you're not.
We all are, dude. We all fall short of the glory of God, right? We're all hypocrites. So you know what? We can just deal with it and at least admit it. But dude, we will let you go. Our time is up. Thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's been a long time coming. I'm so glad we could make it happen. I love all your talks you've ever done, and it's always something new and crazy. And this was new and crazy too. This is a new Nick Hinton. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well,
sorry if it's
links?
not what you're expecting. But yeah.
Oh no.
No, it was great. Thank you.
Perfect. Do you have any links or anything people should be looking out for in the future?
Just Nick Hinton, NickHinton on Twitter and Instagram. Hopefully have 3 new books out, which is all of my testimony, basically how all of this started to make sense to me, the crazy Men in Black stuff, the demon, whatever.
Love it.
Yeah, Men in Black, whatever, all that crazy stuff, and a book about the Ashbury revival and the speaking in tongues and the Leviathan spirit, the whore of Babylon, all that stuff is in the works as well. But yeah, I'll probably release those and dip and live on a homestead. So
nice. Good.
Nice.
I'll join you there at some point.
Yeah, dude, you're welcome.
All right, man. Thanks so much. Thanks all the listeners on Rockfin Audio, YouTube, wherever you're listening. We love you all too. Bye.